Before we begin, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment. What happens when one of country music's biggest stars steps into the tense arena of daytime television and ends up across from one of the most outspoken hosts in American media? What follows isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. It's a lesson in standing firm. A clash of worldviews that moved from polite conversation to one of the most heated moments in live TV. This is the story of the day Blake Shelton appeared on The View and delivered a verbal blow that left Joy Behar silent, the studio unsettled, and millions of viewers divided in a long brewing cultural debate. Before you see what unfolded, understand this. What you're about to read isn't basic celebrity chatter. It was a moment where the polish dropped away, where Hollywood smoothness gave way to blunt honesty, and a country boy from Oklahoma made it clear exactly who he was and who he wasn't. The morning started like any typical episode of The View. Studio lights lit up the set, audience members found their seats with anticipation, and the crew moved through their usual routines. Blake Shelton was scheduled as the featured guest, there to promote his latest album and upcoming tour. It should have been simple. Light questions, friendly laughs, maybe a mention of The Voice. Standard morning show fare for one of country music's most recognizable names. Blake walked in with his usual confident stride, that easy Oklahoma charm in full effect. He tipped his cowboy hat to the cheering crowd, flashed his trademark smile, and settled comfortably into the guest chair like someone who had done this countless times. The audience responded warmly, the applause sincere, the excitement clear. Blake Shelton, the voice coach, chart-topping artist, beloved entertainer. What could go wrong? The other hosts greeted him kindly. Whoopi Goldberg gave her professional welcome. Sarah Haynes beamed, clearly happy to have him there. Even Sonny Hostin seemed genuinely pleased. Everything unfolded exactly as Blake's team expected. Friendly, easygoing, a smooth promotional appearance. But Joy Behar sat unusually quiet, a knowing smile at the corners of her mouth. Anyone familiar with The View knew that look. It was the expression of someone preparing her angle, timing her approach. Those who understood Joy's rhythm could sense what was coming, even if Blake didn't. The conversation started peacefully. Questions about the new album, comments about The Voice, light talk about life in Nashville. Blake answered with practiced ease, his drawl adding charm to every reply. The audience laughed, the co-hosts nodded, everything ran smoothly. For a moment, it really did feel like another typical celebrity interview. Then Joy spoke. "Well, well, well," she said, her voice cutting through the warmth like a blade. "Look who decided to join us." She leaned forward, her smile sharp. "Blake Shelton, the voice of rural America, or maybe just a certain part of it." Blake kept smiling, but his eyes shifted slightly. A small tightening, a quick adjustment. "Good morning to you too, Joy," he replied, still friendly, but guarded. "Always a pleasure to be here with you, wonderful ladies." "Oh, drop the charm, Blake," Joy shot back, waving him off. She leaned forward, her posture changing completely. No longer casual, now fully locked in. "Let's discuss your recent comments about small-town values. You seem to think living in a small town automatically makes someone more moral or more patriotic than the rest of us city folks." The other hosts exchanged uncertain glances. The once bubbly audience fell quiet. Whoopi tried to shift the conversation, but Joy wasn't stopping. "I never said that, Joy," Blake replied, his accent deepening instinctively. "What I said was small towns teach certain values. Community, helping your neighbors, working for what you have. I never claimed anyone was better." "Oh, please," Joy said, dismissing him again. "That's exactly what you implied. You country stars love to act like you're the real Americans. And the rest of us are what? Fake? We're just as American as you." Blake's jaw tightened slightly. His hands pressed a bit more firmly on the armrests, but he stayed composed. Joy, you're putting words in my mouth. I respect everyone, whether they're from New York City or a town of 3,000. Do you, though? Joy pushed, her voice rising. Because your music, your whole image, is built on the idea that real America is out there in the heartland, and places like New York, places where I grew up, don't count. The tension thickened. The audience was silent. Camera operators exchanged glances. Producers silently signaled from the control room, unsure whether to cut away or let the moment unfold. Sarah tried to steer the conversation back to Blake's music, but Joy kept going. You know what bothers me most about this small-town superiority complex? Joy continued, now fully focused on Blake like a guided missile. It's that you get to sit there and judge the rest of us, while earning millions singing about pickup trucks and dirt roads, Joy said. You've been living in Hollywood and Nashville for decades, Blake. When was the last time you actually lived in one of those small towns you're always singing about? Blake's relaxed posture shifted. His shoulders squared, his back straightened. For the first time since the interview began, he looked genuinely irritated, no longer just defending himself, but personally offended. The easygoing exterior was slipping, and something firmer, sharper, was starting to surface. Joy, Blake said, his voice steady but edged with steel. I may live in Nashville now, but I haven't forgotten where I'm from. I grew up in Ada, Oklahoma. Population 12,000. My dad worked construction. My mom ran a beauty shop. I know what it's like to live in a place where everyone knows everyone else. And now you're worth hundreds of millions, Joy shot back without hesitation, her voice rising. You've got homes in multiple states, private planes, all of it. Don't you think it's a little disingenuous to keep playing the common man role? Blake's signature smile, usually an effortless, disarming grin, finally broke. Completely. You know what, Joy? His tone had shifted entirely. The promotional politeness was gone. What remained was raw and unfiltered. Success doesn't erase someone's roots. I'm fortunate, no question. But that doesn't change who I am or where I come from, and I'm proud of that. Proud enough to exploit it for profit, Joy countered, leaning back with a satisfied expression, clearly pleased with the reaction she'd triggered. Your whole brand relies on this image of simple country folks versus sophisticated city people. It's divisive, Blake. And honestly, it's getting old. The tension in the studio was thick now, almost electric. Everyone felt it. The moment where there was no going back. Whoopi tried again, voice warning. Maybe we should talk about the tour. But Blake was finished with being polite. Exploit it? He repeated, his voice rising for the first time, real anger showing through. Joy, I write and sing about my life, my experiences, the people who shaped me. That's not exploitation. That's authenticity. And if you can't see the difference, that says more about you than me. The studio let out a collective gasp. Even the camera operators froze. This wasn't playful banter anymore. It was a genuine confrontation. And Blake had just hit back hard. Joy's eyes blazed. Her face reddened. She gripped the desk. Authentic, she practically spat. You're as authentic as a $3 bill. You're a manufactured product, just like every other country star Nashville turns out. Another loud gasp from the audience. Even the co-hosts shifted uncomfortably, exchanging uneasy glances. The conversation had blown past daytime TV boundaries. Blake rose slowly to his feet. Whether intentional or instinctive, it had the same impact. At his height, he towered over the panel, suddenly more commanding, more imposing than anyone expected. The shift in power was instant. You know what, Joy? He said, voice controlled but lined with cold fury. I've sat here and taken your shots because I respect this show and most of the people on it. but I'm not going to sit here and let you question my character or my integrity. Oh, did I hit a nerve? Joy mocked, standing as well, unwilling to cede ground. Her tone dripped with sarcasm. The truth stings, doesn't it, Blake? The truth? Blake's voice was dangerously calm. The truth is you've sat behind this desk for years, throwing stones at people, tearing them down, taking shots at anyone who doesn't think like you. And you call that entertainment? Joy flushed deeper. I call it honesty, she fired back. Maybe something you should try. Blake shook his head, disappointed. Honesty would be admitting you judged me before I even walked out here. You don't want a conversation, Joy. You want a fight. Maybe I do, she said defiantly, chin up. Maybe it's time someone called you out. The room was electric. Every eye was locked on them. The producers had stopped trying to intervene. This was TV chaos, volatile and impossible to look away from. Blake looked at her with a mix of anger and disappointment, his voice dropping to a cold whisper that carried more force than yelling. You want to call me out? Fine. Let's do this the right way. He paused, letting the tension thicken. You sit here day after day criticizing people you've never met, places you've never been, experiences you've never lived. You talk about small towns like they're a joke, like the people in them are beneath you. Joy leaned back with crossed arms, defensive but still combative. I never said they were beneath me. I said your portrayal of them is fake. My portrayal, Blake's voice rose, losing its careful restraint. I didn't learn about it from a book or a TV show, Joy. I lived it. I lived in a place where if your neighbor's barn burned down, 20 families showed up the next day to rebuild. Where if someone got sick, the whole town came together. That's not fake. That's real. Oh, spare me the Norman Rockwell fantasy, Joy snapped. Small towns have their problems too. Poverty, addiction, close-mindedness, but you never sing about that, do you? You only sing about the nice parts. Blake's hands tightened into fists at his sides, his knuckles turning white. You think I don't know about the hard parts? He said. My hometown has dealt with factory shutdowns, young people moving away because there aren't enough opportunities. I've watched families lose everything. But you know what? Those same people who are struggling still take care of each other. They still have dignity. They still have heart. And they still vote for politicians who keep them struggling, Joy snapped back, her voice climbing to match his. But I guess that's not something you want to talk about, is it? The other hosts were signaling desperately for a commercial break, hands waving, fingers dragging across their throats, but the argument had already broken loose. It was running on its own momentum now. There it is, Blake said quietly, the softness making it all the more dangerous. There's the real issue. This was never about my music. It was never about authenticity. This is about politics. This is about the fact that you can't stand that millions of Americans don't think like you, don't vote like you, don't share your idea of what this country should be. Those millions of Americans are being manipulated, Joy fired back, her voice sharp and accusing. By you, by the media, by politicians who tell them what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. Blake stepped closer toward the desk, his voice rising with real conviction. And who decides that, Joy? Who decides what people need to hear? You, the media, politicians, or maybe, just maybe, people are smart enough to decide for themselves. Joy slammed her hand on the table, the crack echoing through the room like a gunshot. Not when they're being misled by celebrity millionaires pretending to be just like them. Blake went still, staring at her for a long, heavy moment. The room felt like it stopped breathing. Then, slowly, he reached up and removed his cowboy hat, an act loaded with meaning that everyone understood. You know what, Joy? His voice was unnervingly calm, the calm in the center of a storm. You're right about one thing. I am a millionaire. I do live a different life now than I did growing up. He set the hat on the table gently, deliberately. But there's one thing you're completely wrong about. His eyes locked onto hers, sharp and unwavering. I've never pretended to be anything other than who I am. I've never hidden my success. I've never lied about where I came from. I've never claimed to be something I'm not. He paused, letting the silence sharpen the moment. Can you say the same? Joy's face went pale, the color draining as if he'd physically struck her. What's that supposed to mean? She asked, her voice suddenly smaller, unsteady. Blake's smile was icy, stripped of humor. It means that before you accuse someone else of lacking authenticity, maybe you should take a long, honest look in the mirror. The room fell into a heavy, uncomfortable quiet. No one moved. Even the camera operators froze, unsure whether to keep filming or avert their eyes. Joy's expression flickered, from shock to confusion to anger, and finally pure fury. How dare you, she whispered, trembling. How dare you come on my show and attack me? Blake lifted his hat and placed it back on his head, slow and deliberate, every movement laden with meaning. Joy, this is the view, not the Joy Behar show. And I'm not attacking you. I'm responding to the attacks you aimed at me. You think you're so clever, don't you? Joy shot back, her voice rising again, losing any mask of control. Coming in here with your folksy charm and your little cowboy act. Let me tell you something, cowboy. I've been in this business longer than you've been wearing that ridiculous hat. Blake raised an eyebrow, a flicker of genuine amusement crossing his face. This business, he said. You mean entertainment? Because last I checked, we're both entertainers, Joy. The only difference is, I don't pretend my entertainment is more important than anyone else's. My entertainment? Joy straightened, her voice hitting a harsh peak. I inform people, Blake. I educate people. I help them understand the world. What do? You help them escape reality. And what's wrong with that? Blake asked, calm again, so calm it cut deeper than shouting ever could. What's wrong with giving people a moment of happiness, letting them forget their problems for a little while? Joy laughed, a bitter, unpleasant sound. Because while they're escaping their problems, those problems are getting worse. While they're clinging to your songs about simpler times, the world is leaving them behind. Blake shook his head, disappointment etched across his face. Joy, you talk about educating people, but all I've seen today is you trying to tear me down. Is that what you call teaching? Is that what you think helps people understand the world? I'm helping them understand that people like you are selling them a fantasy, Joy snapped. A fantasy that keeps them from demanding the real changes they need. And what changes would those be, Joy? Blake asked, his tone sharpening. What exactly do you think I'm stopping them from demanding? Joy gestured wildly, her frustration spilling over. Better jobs, better health care, better education. Instead of fighting for any of that, they're sitting in your make-believe world where everything is simple and sweet and perfect. Blake studied her for a long moment, his gaze slicing through her defenses. You want to know what I think, Joy? He said quietly, dangerously. I think you're angry because the things that comfort people don't come from you. I think you're angry because, even with all your lecturing, people still choose simple songs about simple joys. Joy flushed bright red, her hands trembling. That's not what this is, isn't it? Blake pressed, stepping closer, his presence overwhelming. You can't stand that people find joy in things you don't understand, things you don't control. You can't stand, Blake said, that someone like me, someone you've decided is beneath you intellectually, can connect with people in ways you never could. You don't connect with people, Joy practically screamed back. You manipulate them. You sell them this fantasy about how wonderful things used to be so they won't see how bad things are now. Blake let out a harsh, bitter laugh, nothing like his usual warm chuckle. Joy, I have never once claimed things used to be better. I've never told anyone to go backward. I sing about appreciating what you already have. Your family, your friends, your community. If that's manipulation, then sure, I'm guilty. You are guilty, Joy shot back, her voice cracking, tears of frustration threatening to spill. You're guilty of keeping people content with less than they deserve. Blake stared at her for a long moment. Something in his expression shifted. Not pity, but something close to a sad kind of understanding. Then he slowly began walking toward the edge of the set. You know what, Joy? His voice sounded tired now, worn down. I came here to talk about my music, to have a conversation with you and your co-hosts, but clearly you had something else in mind. Where are you going? Joy demanded, her voice rising in panic as the situation slipped out of her control. We're not finished. Blake stopped, turned back, his expression unreadable. Yes, we are. There's no point continuing. You don't want to talk. You want to attack. I want to talk about the truth, Joy insisted, desperate. I want to talk about your responsibility as a public figure. My responsibility, Blake repeated, incredulous. Joy, my responsibility is to my fans, the people who buy my music and come to my shows. My responsibility is to be honest about who I am and what I believe. I don't owe you or anyone else an apology for that. You owe it to the American people to stop feeding them this small-town mythology, Joy shouted, her composure completely gone. You owe it to them to stop pretending ignorance is bliss. Blake's entire face went cold. His jaw tightened, his eyes hardened. And there it is, he said quietly, dangerously. You just called millions of Americans ignorant. People in small towns who work hard, raise families, look out for their neighbors. You just called them ignorant. I didn't say that, Joy protested, but the conviction was gone. Yes, you did, Blake replied firmly, pointing at her. You said it. And that tells me everything I need to know about you, and your version of education. The other hosts sat frozen, stunned, and uncomfortable. Whoopi had stopped trying to intervene. Sarah looked like she wanted to sink into her chair. The entire studio felt like a powder keg that had already exploded, and Blake was walking away as the smoke settled. Go on. Then, walk away, Joy shouted as he continued toward the exit, her voice cracking. Run away when someone challenges what you believe. Blake stopped one last time. He turned back to the panel, his cowboy hat shadowing his eyes, his stance solid. Joy, you didn't challenge my beliefs. You insulted me. You insulted my fans. You insulted millions of Americans who don't share your worldview. That's not a challenge. That's just mean-spirited. The truth is mean-spirited sometimes, Joy said defiantly, lifting her chin. Blake nodded slowly. You're right about that. And here's the truth. This show used to be about different perspectives having a conversation. Now it's about one perspective shouting down all the others. With that, Blake Shelton turned and walked off the set of The View. His boots echoed through the stunned silence. The studio audience sat frozen, mouths open, trying to process what they had just seen. Joy stood behind the panel alone, her face flushed with anger and humiliation, her hands trembling as she gripped the desk. The cameras kept rolling, catching every moment of the fallout from one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. Security moved in quickly, though there was no need. Blake wasn't making a scene. He was simply leaving. Producers scrambled, trying to salvage the rest of the show. The control room erupted in chaos as everyone tried to make sense of what had just happened. The confrontation had lasted less than 20 minutes, but it would be replayed, analyzed, debated, and argued over for years. Clips would go viral. Social media would explode. news outlets would treat it like a major cultural moment, and America would once again be divided, not only by politics or values, but by which side they believed was right. In the end, a routine promotional appearance had turned into a cultural flashpoint. Blake walked into the studio as a country star selling an album. He left as a symbol of defiance, of frustration, of millions who felt talked down to by the entertainment establishment. And Joy Behar, who thought she'd reveal hypocrisy, ended up revealing something about herself instead. Whether Blake was right to walk off, whether Joy crossed a line, whether the moment exposed something real about America or was just another manufactured controversy. Those answers depend entirely on who you ask, where they live, and what they believe about the America we have versus the America we imagine.